What's up, people? Thank you as always for passing by the channel. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. All right, so would have a peak David Haye have beaten Anthony Joshua? That's the question Spencer Fearon asked. I'm not quite sure where the question came from, but if you haven't seen it, here's the clip now.
Bottom line, I want to know, like, would a peak David Haye have knocked out Anthony Joshua? Do you believe you knocked him out?
I think a peak David Haye would beat pretty much anybody. So I in my mind, when I was in my heyday, I felt invincible. So on my day, I think I'd beat pretty much anybody.
I think you just rolling that little hand grenade in there.
Let Lennox Lewis, though. I don't know about Lennox Lewis.
Alright, cool.
Lennox Lewis is just too big and athletic. But because the thing with Lennox Lewis have the athleticism and the natural boxing style and the amateur pedigree.
All right, so there's a clip. You've seen it now. We'll talk about Spencer Fearon's reaction. We'll talk about the Lennox Lewis stuff as well. But would have a peak David Haye gotten through, I guess, this current version of Anthony Joshua is probably coming into his peak as well. It's funny as well, because before we talk about it, this fight was close to being made. This fight was that close to being made. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but if David Haye got through Tony Bellew the first time round, there were talks ongoing about Anthony Joshua versus David Haye at Wembley Stadium, and that would have been massive. Obviously, that didn't happen. Tony Bellew beat David Haye twice, and subsequently David Haye retired. Now, obviously, the question was brought up by Spencer Fearon, and it kind of made me start thinking, would have a peak David Haye have beaten this version of Anthony Joshua? I think first and foremost, we have to decide what was the best version of David Haye. For me, the best version of David Haye I've ever seen was against Enzo Maccarinelli. That performance was just punch perfect, powerful, fast, spiteful. It had absolutely everything. And I would have put that cruiserweight version of David Haye against any cruiserweight. I know it sounds crazy, but honestly, I would have put him in against Evander Holyfield cruiserweight. I would have put him against Usyk cruiserweight. That version of David Haye, where he was just big for the weight, fast, strong, accurate, that is the best version I've seen of David Haye. But that's at cruiserweight. We're talking about heavyweight here. And at heavyweight, I'm kind of like mixed with David Haye at heavyweight. I think we all have this image of David Haye at heavyweight being destructive and powerful, but I mean, I remember seeing performances against Monty Barrett, which wasn't great. I know he put Monty Barrett down like 4 or 5 times, but again, did his power really go all the way up? He put John Ruiz down a lot of times. John Ruiz got up, and that was at the end of John Ruiz's career. I don't think John Ruiz actually had a fight after that. He won the title against Valuev, but go and watch the performance. I actually don't think he won that fight. Obviously, it made sense as why to give him the belt. Again, Valuev didn't fight after that. He had a couple other fights, Audley Harrison, which really stunk out the place. And obviously that fight against Klitschko. So I don't know what was the best David Haye at heavyweight. I'm trying to think, and I think probably the best version of David Haye at heavyweight was against John Ruiz. But again, it's hard to gauge that performance because John Ruiz was coming to the end of his career, had all those great fights against the likes of Evander Holyfield, but was coming to the end and never fought again. But he did look good against John Ruiz. He looked accurate. John Ruiz brought experience to the ring. He looked accurate. He looked powerful. Again, he looked fast. And that's probably the best version of David Haye at heavyweight that I've seen. Would that version of David Haye have got through this Anthony Joshua? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yes, that performance from David Haye was accurate, strong, powerful, but that was against an aging, nothing left John Ruiz. Anthony Joshua isn't that. Anthony Joshua is 6'6", 18 stone, and can hit like a truck, right? And he has a boxing pedigree as well. I mean, we don't give him credit for his boxing ability. Anthony Joshua can box a bit. Anthony Joshua can box a bit. So whereas if I was asked this question 2 years ago, I would have said, you know what, I think David Haye knocks him out, because I actually did think that a couple of years ago. I'm not convinced. I don't know what David Haye did at heavyweight to think that he would run through Anthony Joshua. Yes, David Haye could hit, but you're telling me Anthony Joshua can't hit? I'm not sure. It'd have been a good fight. It really would have been a good fight. But I think in the end, I think Anthony Joshua could be maybe just a bit too big and powerful for him. I think you forget, David Haye was what, 15.5 stone? 15.5 stone. I know that people might say, look, Deontay Wilder's small as well in terms of weight. But I don't think David Haye can hit like Deontay Wilder. I know David Haye could hit, but I'm not sure if he could hit like Deontay Wilder. 15.5 stone David Haye compared to an 18 stone Joshua, who can move a bit as well. Joshua doesn't move like Frank Bruno. He's not stiff like Frank Bruno. I think sometimes people label him as being stiff. I don't think he's anywhere near as stiff as Bruno. So yes, David Haye would have a speed advantage, but it's not going to be overwhelming. He's not in there with, again, the likes of Bruno. He's in there with, again, a fast, accurate Joshua who can hit as well. It would have been a good fight. What was very interesting about David Haye's response especially when he mentioned Lennox Lewis, was you could clearly hear him taking jabs at Anthony Joshua and what Anthony Joshua's achieved. Because when he mentioned that he wouldn't be able to beat Lennox Lewis, the reasons he gave were too big and athletic. So I'm guessing he's trying to say that Joshua isn't athletic. He talked about the amateur pedigree of Lennox Lewis. Obviously, Lennox Lewis won Olympic gold medal, but so did Anthony Joshua. It's almost as though he doesn't give credit to Anthony Joshua for winning the Olympic gold medal in 2012. And he's not the only one. A lot of people don't. A lot of people, looking back, actually thought that Anthony Joshua lost in the first round. So he doesn't give credit for Anthony Joshua's amateur background, I think. So again, I think by crediting the skills of Lennox Lewis, I think he's almost given discredit to Anthony Joshua, if that makes sense. What's also interesting is the reaction of Spencer Fearon. When Spencer Fearon asked a question and David Haye answers, the reaction from Spencer Fearon is almost as though, I told you so. Again, I don't know what was the reason for the question, but it's interesting. But what do you guys think? Anthony Joshua, David Haye, who would win? I think AJ would have beat him at heavyweight. I wasn't too impressed with David Haye's run at heavyweight. Again, that was injury blighted, but even in his performances before injuries against the likes of Monty Barrett, Valuev, and John Ruiz, I wasn't too impressed. And I think a strong Anthony Joshua would probably knock out David Haye. That's my opinion. But I wouldn't be surprised if David Haye landed a haymaker. Look, whoever lands first, it's lights out. But if Anthony Joshua lands on David Haye, he's never getting up. No way, Jose.